Hello everyone and welcome to LGBTQ 101. My name is Tahira, or just Ty, and I'm a student, child, and youth care practitioner here at the Kujenga Wellness Project.
Hello, my name is Sofia Regata. I am also a placement student at Kujenga Wellness Project in the Child and Youth Care program.
We're excited to have you here and we hope you're ready to learn something new.
Before we begin, we just want to do a land acknowledgement. Kujenga Wellness recognizes the people of the Mississauga of Schuylkill Island First Nation. We're so thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. The lands we are situated on are covered under the Williams Treaty and are the traditional territory of the Mississauga, a branch of Anishinaabe Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. These lands remain home to the number of Indigenous nations and people. We acknowledge these lands out of the respect of the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America, from before the arrival of the settler peoples until this day. Most importantly, we remember the history of these lands that has been tainted by treatment and lack of friendship with the First Nations who call them home. The history is something we are all affected by, as well as all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future.
So today we're going to be talking a little bit about 5 main topics that will give you a general idea about the LGBTQ community. You might also hear me refer to it as the queer community throughout the presentation. A lot of people in the community, including myself, prefer this term. However, it was originally used as an insult to the community, and there are individuals who still find it offensive. So as an ally or someone first starting to learn, LGBTQ+ is the safer term to use. So without further ado, Sophia's going to get us started with sexual and romantic attraction.
So let's begin. Our sexual and romantic attraction. Attraction is what draws us to another person. A sexual attraction is what makes us want to have a physical, intimate relationship with someone. On the other hand, romantic attraction is what makes us want to have an emotional, loving relationship with someone. No matter who is involved in them, intimate relationships may involve sexual attraction, romantic attraction, or both. People can also experience both, just one, or neither.
There are many sexual and romantic identities in the queer community. Thankfully, the stems we use work for both sexual and romantic identities. So, someone can be heteroromantic, meaning they're romantically attracted to people of a different gender, as well as heterosexual, meaning they're sexually attracted to people of a different gender. A person's sexual and romantic identities don't always have to match, though, because they exist independently. For example, someone might be pansexual, they're attracted to all genders, but homoromantic, meaning they're only interested in romantic relationships with people of the same gender as them. Don't worry if these terms are new to you, because we're going to go over some of the most common identities on the next slide. You'll also find that queer people will often simplify their identities in conversation. Someone might use the labels demisexual and homoromantic as a way to understand themselves better personally, but then they might just say to someone else, "I'm gay." So like we talked about, the stem hetero means a person is attracted to people of a different gender than their own. This is usually referred to as being straight. The homo stem means someone is attracted to people of the same gender. Most of the time, you'll hear people use the words gay or lesbian instead.
Pan. Pan means that a person is attracted to all gender identities. This doesn't mean that they are more likely to cheat on a partner or that they will change their mind about their identity. It just means that gender is not a barrier for them in relationship. Bi. It's similar to pan. It's originally meant a person was attracted to men and women, but now it can also include attraction to other gender identities, depending on who is using the label. Don't worry if you aren't sure what gender identity means. We're going to talk about that coming up. Demi means that attraction to another person only happens after a close relationship is built over time. This might look like becoming friends with people before wanting to have an intimate relationship with them. Asexual and aromantic mean that a person does not experience that kind of attraction. People who use labels are not broken or prudish. They simply favor other kinds of relationships over sexual or romantic ones. Keep in mind that these labels are very personal and can mean slightly different things to different people. What is important is to respect a person's identity and learn what it means to them if that person feels the need to share it with you.
Your biological sex is made up of the physical characteristics you are born with. A person can be born physically male, physically female, or intersex, meaning they have both male and female anatomy or chromosomes. Gender identity is who we feel we are. It's influenced by our hormones, our environments, and society's expectations of us. This identity is usually formed around 3 years old, but it can take a lifetime to truly understand. If it sounds confusing, that's because it can be. Like romantic and sexual attraction, our sex and gender are independent of one another. They don't always match up. Someone can be born with a female body and raised as a girl, but then come to understand that psychologically, they're a boy.
Now talking about gender identities. Cisgender means that a person's gender assigned at birth, the gender that society says matches their physical body, matches the way they feel. For example, a person is born with a female body, is raised as a girl, and comfortable in living their life as a woman. Transgender is the opposite. It means that a person's gender assigned at birth does not match their gender identity. Usually, a transgender person goes through transition, which is the process of leaving their assigned gender and becoming their true psychological gender. This can involve a combination of social transition, using a new name, changing their pronouns, and dressing in the way that affirms their identity, and medical transition, which includes puberty blockers, being prescribed hormones, and getting surgery. A transgender person does not always transition medically, though whether it is become a personal preference, medical challenges, or other reasons. Continuing on, we have two-spirit is a term used in Indigenous communities. It is used by the people who represent both a male and female spirit, though their identities, dress, and traditional roles. People who have this identity might also identify with terms that are specific to their language or community. Non-binary. Non-binary is a general term used by people who identify with same aspect of maleness and same aspect of femaleness, or none at all. Their identity exists outside of our traditional views of what is male and what is female. Now we have a gender fluid. A gender fluid person is someone whose identity moves along the spectrum of male and female. At times, they may identify as more strongly feminine, and other times they may feel more strongly masculine. Agender describes someone who does not identify with any gender. They do not feel a connection to femininity or masculinity.
So now for pronouns. A pronoun is the way that we refer to a person when we speak or write. There are many pronouns, but the ones we use most commonly are she or her, he or him, and they or them. She and her are used when talking about a woman or feminine person, while he or him are used when talking about a man or masculine person. They and them can be used to talk about groups of people, or can be used to refer to one person. People have been using they as a singular pronoun in English for at least 600 years. It can be used when we don't know the gender of another person, or when a person is not comfortable with the pronouns he or she. Non-binary, gender fluid, and agender people often use they and them as pronouns, but people with other identities can as well. People might also use two different sets of pronouns, or be comfortable with any pronoun. For example, I'm happy for people to refer to me as she or as they. Gender expression is how we show our gender identity to other people so that they might understand who we are. It might also be how we feel most comfortable dressing, acting, spending our time, or being referred to. Our gender expression is often influenced by what our culture expects from people of our gender. For example, a woman might have long hair and wear high heels to work because that's what's expected, or a man might join a hockey team and never wear makeup. A person's gender expression and identity are very unique though, and oftentimes we don't match up exactly with society's expectations. Maybe you identify as a woman, but feel very uncomfortable wearing skirts and dresses. Or maybe you're someone who presents as more masculine, but loves to knit and bake. The way we express ourselves is very personal, and there are as many ways to express it as there are people on the planet.
Lastly, we're going to be talking about the intersectionality. Intersectionality, we all have different identities that will make up who we are. People in the LGBTQ plus community are not just part of the community, but also other groups that influence how they are treated in society. Intersectionality refers to the way that identifies intersect, especially identities which might put a person at a disadvantage. The main identities that intersectionality focuses on are race, gender, nationality, ability, and sexuality, but there are others.
The reason that intersectionality is an important part of being queer is that it affects almost all of us, and some of us more than others. We can experience it as discrimination. For example, a gay woman experiences both homophobia and sexism at the same time. If she's also disabled, she will experience ableism, and if she's also transgender, she'll experience transphobia. We also experience intersectionality as our communities never interacting. For example, it can be difficult for a Black queer person to find spaces that are accepting of both their racial identity and their sexual or gender identity. The way that the queer community experiences intersectionality can also put many of us at risk for losing our jobs, being disowned from our families, or being the victims of violent crime. For instance, in 2019, roughly 75% of American transgender people who were murdered were Black. However, intersectionality is also something we should celebrate in our community. Each of us brings something unique to the rainbow, and that is what makes our community so vibrant and exciting. It's important that queer people look out for each other and that our allies outside the community continue to educate themselves and support us in gaining a safe, respected place in society. And that brings us to the end. I want to thank you for coming and taking the time out of your day to learn with us. I hope this presentation has given you some new knowledge and a better understanding of the LGBTQ+ community. Your learning doesn't end here though. Please check out some of the resources we have linked in the description of the video. I know it means a lot to me that you're taking the effort to learn about our community, and I'm confident that the queer people in your life would feel the same.